I want to welcome you all today. My name is Tim Dougherty. I'm with Wowza Media Systems. I'm a solutions engineer. My job basically, as you know, as an SE is I work with regular folks, which probably most of us claim to be, making their streaming media stuff work. And today we're going to do a walkthrough of a couple virtual reality workflows. I do have behind me, it's kind of hard to see because it's on the table, but we've got the Aura 360 VR camera, and then I also have plugged into my iPhone the Nex 360 camera, which is a really cool little device. So what I'd like to do is, and it'll be a little messy, I'd like to just get you onto the network if you haven't already. You can see the information here, Wowza or Wowza 5G. I think the 5G performs a little bit better based on a session we did yesterday. And then the password is VR360 Live, and all the letters are lowercase. Once you get logged in, go to wowza.com/VR-360, and there's a link on that page where you can download in your Google Play or the Google App Store or the Apple App Store and get a hold of that Nex Player 360 app. So go ahead and do that right now. While you're doing that, I'll just give you a quick overview of what I have. You can see right here, this is the control screen for the Aura, and it is configured to push into a Wowza streaming engine that's running on my Mac, and you should, if you're on the network, be able to access those streams. I have a player here that should be working, and you can see that it's live. There is a delay because it is running MPEG-, which is HTTP, so you'll see probably anywhere from 15 to 30 seconds latency on this particular workflow, maybe even longer. But as you can see, it's pretty cool to view the 360 live. If you access this on the Nex 360 app, and I'm going to go over this in a little bit more detail later in the session, but let me pull up my iPhone here and show you how to do it. There we go, cool. So we've got the Nex 360 app. I'm going to pull it up here. And this is what you're going to see. So you're going to need to put a user in there. And the user is, in the PowerPoint presentation, Nex Player 360. And the password is Nex Player 360, and then capital R rocks. Go. And I'm going to open up a URL, and that is mac.wowzademo.com. /demo. I wish I could do this magically over the air, but we have to type them in longhand. And then /aura. Has anybody got it working yet? I need some background music. I am feeling the pressure. QR code would have been a really good idea. This is an awkward pause that I hope has a victorious moment.
Well, at least for one person.
Uh-huh. All right, this might be an exercise in futility. I'll tell you what, I will give a challenge. Do you have it working?
What do I need to do
Now you go to open, if you're on the Wi-Fi, you go to open URL, and then you're going to need to type that in. Now I think I have a way we can cheat. Hold on a second, hold on a second. What are we looking for? Do we have any additional Google Cardboard? No, it should be also on Android as well. Looks like I told you it would be a little messy, and I think I was right. I'm going to go ahead because we have a time constraint and just get started with the presentation. But if you do get to one of these URLs, you might want to take a picture of it like this gentleman up here. It is amazing. What I wanted to do is get you to a point where you pull these things up and you're actually experiencing the thrill of 360 VR. I am passionate about this because it creates a very human experience. The first time I did it, I was actually at a trade show, and it was like one of those moments when there wasn't much going on. And so I fired up a Google Cardboard, and I was watching a pterodactyl sphere. And I was walking around in this area, and I started bumping into stuff because I realized, and you may have experienced this before in the past, that your brain shifts when you're watching like an Oculus or even the Google Cardboard, as rudimentary as that is. Your brain thinks it's inside another world. So creating that live for viewers is tremendous. And I love the fact that you can do that to scale using a cloud environment or also using a streaming server like Wowza or many others. So my goal here, I know it was a little risky with the boxes and stuff, was to try to get you to experience that, but I don't want to take too much time doing it. So I'm going to jump into the presentation, blow through some demos so you get a good taste of just kind of a organic VR 360 live experience. So bear with me. I love questions. I like to be interrupted. So I welcome any questions. If you really have something burning you want to ask me, raise your hand. I'll totally call on you. So diving right in, this here is a typical workflow for virtual reality and 360 streaming. On the left, you have something that looks like it's out of a science fiction movie. That's actually a 360 camera diagram, and it's going into a video stitcher. So you have the camera with the sensors that shoots out the signal. It can be over HDMI, it can be over SDI, it could probably be even over wireless. And it goes into what's called a video stitcher. And that's where the computation takes place. That takes all of the images that are coming in, and it's amazing how they get stitched together, and it's getting better and better and better. When I bring up the little the Insta360, it's just tremendous how well the stitching works in such a small device. So the video stitching in this place, you'll see this computer up here. It's actually kind of hard to see. It's about the size of one of those small Intel desktop computers. It's like little tiny mini pizza box, personal pizza box. It's doing a ton of computation, and that thing gets hot. So the video stitcher takes care of making that 360-degree globe that you're inside. And then you push that into a streaming environment. We've got two diagrams here. One is Wowza Streaming Engine, which some of you may be familiar with. I've got that running up here, and then we also have Wowza Streaming Cloud, which functionally does the same thing, except instead of pushing it over the LAN to a computer, it's going up through the internet to someone else's computer in Amazon or Google or wherever your cloud transcoder is located. So there's the processing and delivery, and what that does is it creates the distribution to scale. So once you get this gigantic pipe of bandwidth configured, and you've got this big stream going up to Wowza Streaming Engine or Wowza Streaming Cloud, you're ready to distribute it. Now, I'll be honest with you, I was fooling around with this getting ready earlier, and I have a cradle point with a cellular data connection, and I was like pushing it out to YouTube, and I'm going to get to that if we have time in this session. It takes an incredible amount of bandwidth to facilitate these 360 streams. And I'm not even joking. I'm talking about insane. Well, I mean, you can set them however you want. You can set it at like 7500K or 7.5 megabits. You can crank it up probably up to around 12, 13, 14. But it takes a ton. I mean, it really is using that much. And so I had extremely high failure rate getting this up through my Verizon LTE. So I made that mental note over and over. It's like, this takes an insane amount of bandwidth. So you saw me doing a speed check earlier. I think we've got enough on the copper line to do a good demo later. But one thing, if you're doing, like if you're a system integrator or you're an event streamer and somebody says, oh yeah, get a 360, you know, we'll have it out on the field. No, that's the easy part. The hard part is the bandwidth, and you got to have plenty of it. You might be able to bond a bunch of cards together, use a live view, have some, you know, there's all kinds of different ways to do it, but that's one of the caveats that I would seriously offer you on this. And then, of course, you can get it out to a regular desktop, you know, Chrome, Firefox. If you have a player that renders it, we'll cover a little bit on the players. And then using a technology like Next 360, and that one's kind of rudimentary. I mean, I feel really bad in the year 2017 to have you guys typing in URLs, but welcome to a demo environment. And then, you know, the headset, which you've got one to take home with you today. And people will always ask you, what is that? It's a strange little contraption that does some pretty amazing stuff. So that's the general workflow. I'm going to cover the demo in depth later. This slide was representative of what I wanted to do at the start. I wanted to get you excited, kind of get your feet wet, and then kind of move into the boring stuff. But I have to go right into the boring stuff now because it was harder to set up than I thought. So use cases. I'm schizophrenic when it comes to 360 VR. Because you have to, what are you going to do with it, right? There's the subjective side. What are you going to do with 360 VR? You can put it, is it like the new webcam? Kinda. You know, is it really, I mean, let me step back a little bit. I was on Facebook like a year ago, and BMW had some 360 VR ad. You may have seen it. And they've got these M3 cars driving around on like the salt flats or whatever. I got frustrated because I was having to move around inside a two-dimensional player and try to find this car and follow it. That was kind of a fail. You know, and I kind of thought, this is like 3D TV. You know, it's kind of here today, gone tomorrow, until you start seeing people do some really creative stuff with it. The Super Bowl, as I recall, they did an immersive experience where they were reuniting people that were deployed in the Army or in the armed forces. An incredible immersive experience where actually seeing your family close up. There's experiences that can be, and I want to cover technology, but I also want you to know why we do this. There's experiences that you can foster using VR that make you actually feel like you're there. I've got 2 churches on the East Coast that are using these things in their services. Now, I know that's crazy, but literally there's a pogo stick zip tied to a pew, and it's about 9 feet in the air, and they can virtually stream their service. Now, there are issues because creeps come in and they aren't necessarily watching the sermon or whatever's happening during the church service, and that's a whole kind of negative byproduct. But you could literally participate in that house of worship service using a virtual technology. Some people might think that's a little artificial, and yeah, you're right, it is. But I mean, it's a little bit better than watching a two-dimensional sermon on a TV. And they're doing some things with medical. Law enforcement is using it. It really is kind of a frontier of use cases right now. We've got a couple up here. Sports, oh my goodness. There's guys that are building businesses with, say, professional football to try to train them how to react in certain situations using immersion, using VR. So I think we're going to see some really niche, some really specialized use cases come out of this. I think that there's a lot that will happen. I wouldn't consider myself a visionary, but I do get kind of excited about the fact that you can take yourself somewhere else through the technology. 360 cameras and rigs. Now, this is the GoPro unit. I've seen this one before. And what I'm learning is the cameras, I mean, they're special, but those are just GoPros. That's the first thing I thought, is GoPros in some kind of, 3D printed case. Thought, okay, that's interesting. So that's one example, and some of you may have seen that this looks expensive. I didn't see that on the Google Prius, and it drove by my house. No, but that's actually looks like a Red 5 or a Red movie camera rig. So, there are different scales of it. This here, somebody went on Amazon and ordered too many GoPros. But, seriously, thinking about all the data coming off of those cameras, there's a lot going on there. This is just a basic, looks like a PCI capture card. So it could be so easy as you taking 4 HDMI sources, getting some type of stitching software, and even doing it on your PC. One of the issues, there are hardware pain points, and it's getting better. We had, at the booth in NAB, we had the Aura actually running, and you have to keep that thing cool because they get really hot. So, there are some pain points. There's a lot of cables. One of the things I was totally stressed out about is how am I going to set this stuff up, before I do a session, and I got lucky, and it happens to be working. Overheating, I mentioned, it can be a very involved process of maintaining a VR. So the takeaway on that is set it up, practice, get good at it. Don't expect to just throw a VR camera out there and make it work. The Aura camera was used at the Oscars, and it was streamed through Wowza Streaming Cloud. And I thought these guys were nuts, like 2 weeks ahead of time, getting this thing ready. They're asking us questions, and I'm like, it's just a camera, just make it go. Well, actually, the dynamics of figuring out where to place the camera, how to manage the network, how to satisfy the producers, because they were smart. They knew that if they put an Aura too close to the red carpet, or excuse me, a 360 cam too close to the red carpet, again, the creeps are going to be going after shots that aren't necessarily safe for work. So they had this thing way up high to where they finally figured out that they could get safe shots. So didn't mean to go too far into the actual practice of using 360 VR, but it's definitely something to think through. It's totally different than pan tilt zoom. It's totally different than the conventional cameras that we're used to. Evolution, well, here's the Aura. I've talked a lot about the Aura, and I'm going to show off the Aura a little bit later. Pogo stick, the stitching box, that's a two-dimensional shot. The stitching box is actually like this big. The Optic, this came out within the last 12, 15 months. We have one. And you know what? The quality in their current version, the one you see right here, isn't amazing. But guess what? Inside this thing, which is about the size of an oven light bulb, it's got 4 cameras, it's stitching, it's got an Ethernet port on it, and, I think it's 3 cameras, but you get the idea. And it actually, one of the execs at Wowza took it out on his mountain bike and made an extensive mountain bike video in 3D and was basically duct taped to his handlebars. It gets really hot, but it works really well. So that's a cool technology. This one, if you want to sell your car and half of your house, you can buy one. It's actually really, really impressive. Forgive me saying that in jest. If I ever see one, I'm definitely going to take a picture, but those are phenomenal. The Teradek Sphere, you can use any camera you want, as I understand it. That takes care of the stitching. They have a very feature-rich iOS app that you can do all the stitching with. It looks like it takes a little bit of time to set up, but I think they've done a fantastic job putting that together. And that's a little bit more on the Sphere. The Teradek guys will appreciate me mentioning that. And then this is one that, doggone it, I think is amazing. I've got it right here. This little guy, you flip your iPhone over and you don't drop it because they're expensive. And all of a sudden you've got, and you'll see it, pretty darn good quality coming off of an iPhone. So I'm looking forward to showing that one to you all later. But that's very, very cool. And this is a Optic unit. That's the same company that made the one that looks like a light bulb. I haven't personally had the opportunity to use this one, but it's, again, the same theory of popping it on the phone. You guys remember the handspring visors? Yes, I'm dating myself. Do you remember those you could plug the cameras into? This is like 1997-ish. If you don't, that's okay. I think these things are going to end up in the phones eventually. So 360 will probably become ubiquitous eventually. And then there's the playback factor, which is also getting a lot better. Next 360, that's an SDK. So what I'm giving you to use today is very rudimentary. But believe it or not, you'll be able to put these into an app environment. have someone develop an app for Android or iOS, and you could actually have people viewing using their SDK on their mobile devices. And then I really like the BitMove player. That's why I'm using it in my demo, because I'm not super smart. I don't like to read manuals, and I went to the BitMove site and I found some, some documentation on VR. Boom, got the embed code and had an HTML page in like 20 minutes. So very impressed with the BitMove player. JW player also has a fantastic QuickTime. I keep saying QuickTime VR, 360 VR, and also Theo player. These are pretty common player technologies in the video streaming industry. And then scaling and infrastructure. So slowing down a little bit and talking about the less exciting but critical part of getting a stream out. I mentioned earlier that takes an incredible amount of bandwidth, and there's several different ways to get it into into an RTMP or some type of TCP stream. You've got the camera and the encoder, and we looked at that. That would be like the Teradek Sphere. You might have an app like what you're going to see with the Insta360 Nano. At some point, Wowza GoCoder may be able to, probably on Android, facilitate some sort of 360 VR connection. Then you want to get it into a streaming environment. Of course, we've got Wowza Streaming Cloud and Wowza Streaming Engine there. And this is where things get a little bit interesting, because the streams are so high resolution, they're very difficult to consume by mobile devices. They're very difficult to consume by people that might have a 5-year-old DSL connection that only does like 6 megs or 5 megs down. So you want to transcode it. And you want to find a creative way to deliver that transcoded stream, meaning it's coming in at 14, maybe 14 megs or 12 megs. You want to have an option for 10. You want to have an option for 8, or even get it down around 2. My demos here are pretty low resolution. The assumption is once I got all you guys on my Wi-Fi, the network's going to be close to useless. So transcoding it down is something that you can do with a Wowza Streaming Engine implementation, as well as with Wowza Streaming Cloud. And the other part of it is you need to distribute it. So using a CDN like Akamai, or pushing it to Facebook Live or YouTube Live, which is really cool, by the way, you can get it out using that particular product. And it tends to, once you get it in a cloud environment like AWS, or once you get into a Wowza cloud environment, you're beyond that last mile. If I'm at my home or place of business, I might be able to, get a 14 meg stream up. But once it's up there, you can direct it to Facebook pretty comfortably, because these gigantic cloud providers have huge network backbones that you can take advantage of. So you want to take care of your distribution, and then your scaling, again, that plays out to, if you're using a CDN, they can totally handle the stream. Or if you're not, you want to use some type of edgeware where you're making sure that the streams that you're getting across, say from California to Virginia, that would be just the mezzanine stream, and then you could have edge servers that serve it out directly to the end users. Does this kind of make sense? You guys with me? Okay, good. And then, of course, you get it to play back on the various devices. And I think we've covered that a little bit. Any questions on distribution at all? Okay.
The specifications basically describes, like, standardize the way things are transmitted between the encoder and the cloud and
Sure, it's going to be an RTMP coming off of your device, most likely. You'll want to pay attention to things like keyframe interval, just like encoding video in general. So your GOP should be 2 seconds. You want to have. I already mentioned a ton about bandwidth. It's actually, when you go into the Aura, I'll just go into it really quick here. It's fairly simple. If I go into the broadcast settings, this is all they're asking me. If you can see it, I don't know if you can. RTMP server, stream name or stream key. You can use authentication. And then, you've got your classic H.264 high, main, or baseline, and then your bit rate. So that's pretty easy. Even the layperson can very easily get in and work with that. Now, this particular one is fairly preset, but I found that to be reassuring. In fact, I liked the simplicity of this configuration screen. You get into some of the Extron or some of the more complicated encoders, you've got a whole different story. Yes?
When you're pushing to Facebook Live, do you use the same specification like doing normal videos, so 720p?
No, it's different, surprisingly, and it's a great question. Facebook Live, if you're pushing a if you're pushing a standard stream into Facebook Live, it's got to be 720p. It needs to be south of, I think, 2.5. And there's keyframe ratings. There's a handful of settings that you need to meet. I didn't see any streaming specifications from Facebook, but you do go through their RTMP gateway. So they give you an RTMP ingest point and then like a 30-character long stream name. So it's kind of using the old route to get into Facebook. And the cool thing about it, they recommend 4 megabits. I did find that. But the cool thing about it is you're not having to be limited to what standard Facebook Live is doing. And I'm going fast because I want to get to that. It'd be really, really cool to be able to see that. This session ends at 3:30, correct? I think so. Okay. So let me jump back to my slide deck and keep myself honest and informative. Oh, good, the demos. Okay, let's do a legit Aura end-to-end demo. We'll do it right through Wowza Streaming Engine. You'll definitely be able to see it on the screen. And if you did have a chance to get the app up and running, great. If you want to catch me in the hall and play with VR 360 at some point later, I think it'd be awesome. So anyway, let's do the Aura end-to-end. First of all, I showed you the settings here. This is the IP address of my Mac. There's a stream key. So I define these things. When you create a stream inside an encoder, you have the ability to define whatever the stream name is. And I've got this set at 5,500 kilobytes, so basically 5.5 megs. So I'm going to go back to preview. You can see this big giant image, and it doesn't really, in fact, it's very distorted. And this is what you're actually sending. So the player knows how to work with that. The player knows how to go, oh, look, a screwed up image. Let's turn it into an orb. And that's functionally what happens. So looks like I'm currently streaming. I'm not going to interrupt that, but there'd be a start button here, and that goes into Wowza Streaming Engine. Wowza, super quick overview. It's a piece of software that runs on a computer that takes a stream and it can repackage it into HLS, repackage it into Dash, repackage it into, if you still use it, Microsoft Silverlight, and other protocols. And I'm not going to get lost in a demo on Wowza Streaming Engine as much as I love the product. But I'm going to show you that I'm signed in here. I have an application called Demo VR 360, and it is producing, let me make this big so you don't need your jeweler's eye loop or binoculars to see it. That's too big. It's producing Dash, HLS, and RTMP. And the BitMove player is using Dash, and you're going to see that in just a second. I've got incoming streams. So there's the stream from the Aura. If I click on it, there's some specs. So I've got it set at 5,500K, but it looks like it's coming in. You can see on the network throughput at 3.1. So definitely variable bitrate, which is fine. And then it's going out, so there must be somebody connected to it in here, which is fantastic. So somebody's watching it at 2.5. Also, I have the option inside of Wowza to push it out to other CDNs, and I'm going to go through a cloud demo, and then I'm going to do it to Facebook Live and YouTube, time permitting. So I've got this incoming stream. If I click on a test player, I can verify that it's working. I need to change this to Aura. And this should just come right up. There it is. So again, that's what Wowza's seeing. Just a very distorted stream. And now I have over here BitMove in player, and there it is. And I did show you this earlier. I think there's the option to, yes, there is. This is what you would see on the mobile if you were using the Google Cardboard. So you would see that stereoscopic image. So that's obviously a player function. Pretty simple. And I'm scrolling it around with the mouse, and one thing to notice with VR is it's pretty tall. So you can see all the way around, just because I know you're all just really curious what's over here. I mean, it's like, look, see, this is what happens with VR. Look, a coffee cup. I don't know why that's interesting. But, so that's on the, that's an in demo of the Aura. And let's do the Insta360 now. And if this doesn't crash, I'm going to be a happy man. I've got this program called Reflector that acts like it's an Apple TV, basically. And
So latency is like about 10 seconds?
yeah, latency it's HTTP streaming. So it's sending chunks of data down. We can shorten those chunks inside of Wowza Streaming Engine down to like 1 second, but that introduces a whole other set of variables. I do have some documentation on how to reduce the latency, but as a standard rule, they're 10-second chunks.
So like you follow, for VR, you still follow like Apple's like kind of HLS specs? Or
That's correct. Yeah, if latency isn't an issue, I'd suggest leaving it default. So MPEG Dash is going to give you better quality at higher bit rates or at higher resolution, which is what you're seeing here in the Aura. So I'm going to bring up the Insta360. And then I have to turn my phone upside down and not hit the power button while I'm doing it. Insta360 is, I'll go home. There's a community, like a social media little network of people they're trying to bring together and make money and take over the world. But what you do is you go into now, first of all, they have some presets here. So they have a Facebook Live preset. I can't really, I mean, it's right here. They have a Facebook Live and they have some YouTube presets, and we're not going to be using those. You can send it to Periscope, send it to YouTube, etc. Well, the way I do it is I go back here, and there's this little settings in the lower right-hand corner. And then I scroll down here. You have to kind of dig for it. And then there's Live. Looks like it's not giving me access to it. So I'm going to pull the camera out, pop it back in. Oh, this has got to work, guys, because this is just cool. So let's do this. Let's kill the app. I'm doing this upside down, and I can tell you're impressed. Pop it back in. We're still going good, and it should launch the app automatically when I plug in the Insta. There we go. Okay, we'll let it warm up here. Go into settings, and Live is not available. I love demos. So, if Live was available, we would be able to stream to Wowza Streaming Engine, and I just went into Instagram. So anyway, a little bit about Insta360. That's the UI for it. I really want the...
Show a Facebook setup? How do you set up the stream direct to Facebook?
I sure can. In fact, let's do that real time. I appreciate you being very understanding. I'll stream it straight to my Facebook page. Here's mine. I'll say there. I'm not even going to put a description. So I'll hit confirm. It wants a description. Live from NYC. Confirm. And I'm going to hit live. It says disconnected. How many of you have given software demos before? Anybody? Okay, how many of you are feeling my pain right now? I need to feel the love here, folks. Demo of anything, yeah. I'll just duck. Okay, this may be a non-starter. Oh, hold on, something's happening. Okay, frustrated, disappointed, don't want to waste your time. I do have a video here that I took. Okay, that's me in Times Square last night. Okay, I'm going to abandon this one. I know when you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. And thank you, Kenny Rogers. Okay, so with the time I have remaining, any questions, by the way? Okay, with the time I have remaining, let's see if we can push the Aura to Wowza Streaming Cloud and then push that to YouTube Live and to Facebook Live. Does that sound interesting? All right, let's do that. So I'm going to go back into the Aura, and I'm going to stop. I'm going to change the preset to Wowza Streaming Cloud, and I did do this previously. So just to give you an idea, you can see that we're dealing with a different set of circumstances. It's going into an entry point, which is going to hopefully hit a Wowza Cloud transcoder. And then I'm going to log into Wowza Streaming Cloud. I'm going to refresh this to make sure I'm still authorized. And I've already created a standard UHD, Ultra HD stream inside Wowza Streaming Cloud. So I've chosen a transcoder that is ready to take a 4K stream. I have already received my RTMP settings here. So you can see that I've already got a URL. I've got a stream name, username, and a password. So if you were to go the long way, it would probably take you about 5 minutes to set up this channel if you're a Wowza Streaming Cloud subscriber. So right now I'm going to start that channel. And that's going to take just a couple of seconds. The cool thing is I think I have enough bandwidth to actually do it now. I was trying to do it in the hotel room, and it was a little like using the Insta. So in any case, once Wowza Streaming Cloud comes online, we're going to broadcast from the Aura. It'll go up to Wowza Streaming Cloud, and then from Cloud, I've got some presets to push it to YouTube Live and to push it to Facebook Live. While that's booting up, this is the Facebook Live 360 portal. And I believe this has only been available for 30 or 60 days. So you have to go to this landing page. So you go to Create Live Stream. And where do you want it? Share it on your timeline. In fact, the gentleman in the back, you were asking earlier about whether you use the standard Facebook Live or this one. Use this one here and share it on the timeline. Now notice this is critically important, and YouTube does the same thing. It says this is a 360 video, and it'll give you a different ingest and a different stream name when you do that. So I hit next. What's on my mind? I am giving a demo at a trade show. Yay. I was going to say something really snarky, but that would be inappropriate to all of you. I'll call this Streaming Media East. And looks like we're ready to go. See, I've got this RTMP URL here, and then I've got this stream key. I'm going to go ahead and copy that to the clipboard. And then I'm going to go over to Wowza Streaming Cloud, which should be running, and it is. So pause the Facebook setup. Let's see if the Aura will make it to Wowza Streaming Cloud. So start streaming. Currently streaming. My blood pressure just dropped by a little bit. So we should see in Wowza Streaming Cloud shortly when it all starts to render. There's the stream coming in from right here in this room. So let's go back to setting up for Facebook. So inside Cloud, there are things called stream targets, and there's things called transcoders. I'm going to go to the transcoder. I'm going to click on my transcoder. And then I'm going to go to outputs and targets. I would love to sit down and explain all this transcoder stuff in detail with you, but that's not what this session is intended for. This one here is the highest transcode. It's pushing out a 10,000K stream. It may be a little weird because I'm only pushing 5,500 in, so that top bandwidth or that top bit transcode might be a little funky. But this one at 4,000 is good. So I've got Facebook VR 360. I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to edit it. And this is where I would enter in the information from this page here. So I think I've already got the Live-360 Facebook on port 80, and I do. And then I'm going to give it this new stream name. And you see that the characters changed a little bit. This is autofill that needs to go because there is no username and password. Okay, give it one look, hit save, and hope for the best. So I'll go back to stream targets, click on my, actually I'm going to go back to transcoders, click on this one, and hopefully there aren't any alerts on my target. There is, but let's see if it started here yet. It hasn't. Okay, I'm going to refresh this. Okay, so it takes it generally takes a little bit of time for this to start streaming. So I'm going to let that just sit there for a minute. I might take one more look at the settings just to make sure I have them right. I know that's correct. RTMP live.360, Facebook 0.80. Okay, I think I've got everything correct. So I'm just a little bit impatient. While that's going on, I'm going to go to YouTube, and I'm going to create a live event. So if you get into the YouTube Creator Studio, everyone's account is somewhat different. You find the YouTube Creator Studio, and then you go to live streaming. There's Stream Now, and that's a lot like Facebook Live. And then there is the event streaming, which I'm going to create an event. I've got 2 minutes. Let's see if I can do it. And I have to go into Advanced, and I have to scroll down here where it says this is a 360 stream. And I'm going to tell it to start the event basically at 3:30, if it'll let me. There it is. It's public. Let's create the event. Awesome. Ingestion settings. I'm going to leave the thumbnail there. Basic ingestion, I'm running about 4 megabits, so I'm going to do between 3,000 and 6. And I will go to here's my ingestion settings right here. I can almost see it. If I can't see it, you definitely can't see it. So I've grabbed this stream name, go back over to Wowza Streaming Cloud, go to YouTube 360. Now I'm really going fast, so now I just want it to work. Replace the stream name. Done. Get rid of this autofill stuff. And save. Okay. And then over here in YouTube, we should see in the live control room some data coming in. It's not receiving data yet. But I do have a stream coming in, so that's good. All right. Looks like it did not work in time. I tried, guys. So basically what you can see, and you know what, I started a session yesterday. I did a 3-hour session on Wowza Streaming Engine, and it went pretty well. You guys had some great questions for me. This is one thing you know is true about video streaming. It's hard. It takes time to set up. I give it my best shot in getting this stuff going, but that's exactly how it works. If you slow down and you don't talk like a crazy person and you don't have 30, 40 people watching you, I bet you I could find the mistake or 3 that I made. But essentially, that's how it works end to end. You get it into the streaming environment, you fiddle around with the settings until you've got it just right, and then all of a sudden you've got people watching it on Facebook, even YouTube. So that's it end to end. Stepping back a little bit, if you have any questions, I'm tim@wowza.com. And I would love to sit down, relax, take a deep breath, talk about any aspect of streaming, including VR 360. Very much would love to hear any ideas you have and how we might be able to help you distribute the stream. So thanks everybody for coming. Have a great rest of your day.